Missed seasons. I could not have known until this spring how we lost the seasons of last year, how the days withered from winter to fall, how they dropped away as if we no longer had the right to them. Our own huddle we unwillingly formed, learning, creating the new distended shape of fear, swelling inward in concentric rings, consuming while we were unaware. What I remember of last summer is this: a single hummingbird trembling at your window. I was standing, teacup in hand, in one of those long silences we had begun to frequent. Behind me you were saying, "I feel as if I'm dying." One other thing I remember. Walking down the long aisle behind your coffin, I came out into stifling sun, the same sun towards which only days before you had tipped your face, entreating the drivers to pause before they hoisted your stretcher to the ambulance. That moment was a season, was it not? Stretcher line. The line inches along the corridor towards the doors of the sealed cobalt room. The technician, Ray, looks up from his dials to joke with Rosie, the receptionist. Rosie tosses a chocolate bar over the heads of the hairless, the eaten away, the dying. This Ray catches. As he checks the screen of his monitor, he peels back the wrapper and takes a bite. He pushes the button that initiates the bombardment of cells. Behind the walls, a body strapped to a table, a partially windowed room. A red light flashes above the door. A loud but finite hum is heard. Every eye swivels momentarily to this. All of us in the line, wheeled and wheelers, stretcher-borne and bearers, pay particular attention to Ray, who, having taken his bite, throws the remaining chocolate back to Rosie, who catches, laughing as she does. All of us watch, intent, concentrating hard, trying to learn some last-minute maneuver, what it might take to cross the room, to step out of line, what it might take to become a laugher of laughs, a tosser of chocolate. The visit. The day you were buried, and after everyone had cried and hugged and returned home, I went back to your grave in the evening, a single flower in my hand. But when I stepped from the car, I knew this visit had become one of the terrible mistakes that we make in life, one of those that will never again be made right, no matter how we try. 3 days before, you had been living and dying both. Through silver bed rails, I had put the slightest pressure on your hand, and when I whispered to your closed eyes, your fingers moved to free themselves, your arm began a slow, wobbling path through the air until your hand found my cheek and rested. I knew at the grave, I knew the way sisters unerringly know that this was the kind of place from which you and I would have run, shrieking, our hands joined. Had we not done just that, playing hide-and-seek at dusk, finding ourselves in sudden shadow behind the barn, where musk of night had fallen, where blue flags were closing in the dark, or by the river bank, where sudden feeble noise could send us running for the safety of light and home. Did we not play at frightening one another? A deadly game at which we sharpened our skills, creeping outside one another's windows, lying in wait under beds, shifting our voices to mock the rattle we thought was death, the tapping we thought was doom. Oh, how we sought that fear, hating it at the same time, but knowing, in a family of many children, that each must learn the game to survive. I knew, when I set my flower on the tossed earth, that weighted you down so heavily, so terribly, I knew at that moment, if I could just bring you back, we'd have dug fingernails into each other's wrists, we'd have held on as dearly as we could. We'd have run shrieking from that place, we'd have run for safety of light and home. The photo, 1. We are at the side of a covered bridge on a high bank. The bridge cannot be seen. Large uneven rocks tilt helter-skelter, but are solidly wedged and will safely hold our pose. We are looking directly at a box camera, a brownie. Neither you nor I remember whose hand is cupped over the window of glass. Behind, a river, a wide stretch. Against the far bank, logs are jammed in what falsely appears to be linear formation, the Gatineau, perhaps. It might be a day we have piled into the back of Uncle Harry's Ford pickup, Father and Uncle Harry in the cab, 10 kids happier than they might ever be again in the back. At the dirt crossroads, Uncle Harry calls to a man who stands gaping, "And we've left another 10 at home." We might have been taken to collect leaves, to hoard overflowing in our arms the colors of fall. And this we do while Uncle Harry and Father pull up to the hotel for a beer. In the photo, the two of us are seated on one of the large rocks. We are wearing bathing suits, though this day we do not swim. My suit has a wrinkled skirt and a broken strap, tied lopsided at the neck. It seems to be faded, but because of the black and white, we cannot be certain of this. We are not grinning, but each of us holds back an uneasy smile. Perhaps I have just told you about the moth that flew into my mouth while I was riding the family bike the night before. You press for detail, but all I can tell you is the air whistling past my shoulders, the sudden shock, the frantic taste of death in my mouth, suffocating as I panic, spitting out pieces of head, body, wing, cotton batting stretched across my throat. The right corner of the photo is overflowing with high and tangled bush. When we hear the shutter click, we will gather the leaves and hurry back to the bridge, because we are eldest of brothers, sisters, cousins, and Uncle Harry and Father will soon be nodding down the steps of the hotel. In the photo, edging towards you from the lower left corner, the gray blurring of a large thumb. The photo, too, in the rowboat. That summer season, we were sisters, brothers, a dog, black and white, sentinel of the prow. The boat wore its spring coat of paint, every year the same forest green, soaked in shallow waters after each winter till the wood swelled and sealed. Father, pleased, stalked the shore, scanning the wide, swift waves. Now we are in the boat. Father, long neck stretched, turns to shore, oars poised over water. 5 children, you between 2 small brothers in the stern, an arm round each, every angle, every contour clear. Now, beneath the waves, the image mirrors children underwater. Faces blur, recover the surface. Father's neck ripples to distortion. The oars bend, trapped in deep-locked wells. First snow. There are certain unpredictable days when I drive through the city, when I can't get by the cemetery, can't keep myself from veering through the still stone gates, climbing from my car at the marker possessed of your chiseled name. Like today, I want to say, listen, are you listening? I stopped by to tell you, this is the day of the first snow. Remember the fresh new flakes trapped on the tongue, dissolved in the mouth's warm cavern? Often when I think of you, it is you in the black chair, the tumor wedged urgent in your brain. How from the doorway I chided you for dragging yourself backwards up the stairs so you could have a real bath one last time. How you put your hand to your nose and gave me the thumb saying, ha, to being sensible. That was over for you. How you looked at me one final day from your parlor bed and in mock grimness said, think of it, I'll never see the inside of my closet again. At the grave I am crouched over a solemn pit. It is the way we faced our annual nascent slide into the bottomless gully after the first good freeze. That singular moment perched on the edge before our daredevil plunge. Seconds later, the shredded air galloping upwards past our descending cheeks. Late in the day we turned home, fingertips and toes numb to the cold, shaking onto the surface of stove, ice that snarled in our mitts. In crazed circles, ice balls danced and spit round the sweltering rings. We gave in to our bodies. We gave in to our perfect fatigue. We sank to the floor and spread newspapers, tugging the boots from each other's feet. I want to say all of this. I want to say, listen, are you listening? What did we learn? What did we know? What was it for? In the end, there is nothing, really, to say. So I stand in unspeakable silence staring down, while long-tailed mockingbirds wing purposefully to the woods, while rodent eyes of squirrels rivet from the trees.